Good morning. Thank you for joining us. This is the California Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council, or EDJCC. Excuse me, EDJCC. Today is October 16th, 2025. This meeting is scheduled to start at 10 a.m. We're at 10:02 and run till about 1 p.m. This is the third and final meeting for 2025 for the Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council. So thank you all for being here. Let's go to the next slide. I'm Carol DeAndres. I am the Stakeholder Engagement Manager for the Master Plan for Aging, or MPA, here at the California Department of Aging, CDA. So lots of alphabet soups. Let's go over a few logistics. We have accessibility built into all of our webinars. As you can see, we have American Sign Language, and we thank Adrian and our other ASL interpreter that you will see shortly. They will be switching off, and we thank you so much. We have closed captioning available to you. If you look at the bottom, it's at the bottom of my Zoom toolbar, should see CC, closed captioning, an icon that says CC, show captions, and you can click view full transcript to assist you there. And if you don't see the CC caption, the icon, go to the More button. It might be hiding under there. Next slide, thank you. Meeting slides, materials, and the recording will be posted to the Cal HHS, or California Health and Human Services Agency, Cal HHS EDJCC webpage. Give us a week or so to get those all ready for posting. And council members, if you have yet, and our guests, if you have yet to do so, please update your name display in Zoom by clicking on the right corner, the three dots, and hitting rename. I do see a few EDJCC members or guests, and we don't know who you are. So please update your name. And if you have any difficulty doing that, the CDA team would be happy to help you. So just, you can raise your hand and we will get that done. Next slide. Our virtual meeting logistics. The chat function is enabled for council members, CDA staff, and our other guests who may be presenting today to share out meeting-related information and resources. And you're able to view that content in the chat. The chat function and the question and answer functions are not enabled for questions and comments from our public attendees. However, we do have public comment periods, and that will be provided orally, and it is designated in the agenda. So if you could hold your comments until then, we will call on you at that time. And as always, you can send your written comments to engage at engage@aging.ca.gov. Let's go to the next slide. The logistics for public comment. If you're attending by phone, you can press *9, and that will indicate to us that you would like to leave a comment. And for those of you on the Zoom webinar platform, you have a raised hand icon. Click that, and we will unmute your line. Do note that public commenters have 2 minutes, just so we can get to everyone. And of course, at any time, you may send us a written comment to our Engage email box, which we monitor consistently at engage, ENG@aging.ca.gov. And at this time, I'm going to spotlight our Elder Justice Specialist. So thank you for waiting for me. Rajana, good morning, and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Ranjana Maharaj, the Elder Justice Specialist here at the Division of Policy Research and Engagement at the California Department of Aging. It's a privilege to be here with all of you today as we come together for our final 2025 EDJCC meeting to strengthen elder and disability justice across California. Next slide, please, Callie. Before we delve into today's agenda, I'd like to take a moment to revisit our council's purpose and the equity guiding principles. The council purpose, the goal of the Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council is to increase coordination and develop recommendations to prevent and address the abuse, neglect, and exploitation and fraud perpetrated against older adults and adults with disabilities. Next slide, Callie. For our equity guiding principles, we recognize that past, current interventions, and services to prevent mistreatment have had negative consequences for some victims, families, and communities as a result of systemic discrimination and biases. To counter these negative impacts and to ensure equity and inclusion moving forward, we are committed to letting the following principles guide all aspects of our work in planning, coordination, and program development. Next slide, Callie. Thank you. 1, we recognize that all adults deserve to live free from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. 2, we acknowledge the existence of systemic racism, discrimination, and negative impacts. In order to combat its impacts, we center equity at all stages of our council's work. 3, centering around equity does not just mean creating equitable solutions for older adults and adults living with disabilities, but also recognizing that implicit bias exists within all of us. We are committed as a group to acknowledge and explore biases while doing the work of this council. Next slide, Callie. Thank you. We acknowledge that while older adults and adults living with disabilities have many overlapping interests, they are distinct communities, and any policies that are observed or recommended by this council should examine impacts to each community. 5, we recognize the importance of hearing directly from older adults and adults living with disabilities. Their lived experiences should always be centered as we move forward with the council's work. Our council serves as a platform for collaboration, innovation, and exchange of information. We are here to amplify the voices of older adults and adults living with disabilities, identify systemic gaps, challenges, and make thoughtful recommendations to help protect their rights. So with this purpose in mind, let us proceed with the next 3 slides. Thank you, Kelly. If you can go over these slides slowly, I'd appreciate it, Kelly. Thank you. I wanted to take a moment to sincerely thank every member who contributes to EDJCC, as well as the subcommittee participants. Your commitment and thoughtful engagement and active involvement in discussions and subcommittee work reflect the true spirit of collaboration. Thank you for advancing elder and disability justice across communities in California. It's deeply appreciated, and we continue to inspire and drive our shared mission. Thanks, Kelly. If you can go to the agenda. Thank you. Quickly going over today's agenda, we started with welcome and meeting logistics, followed by our council's purpose and guiding principles to ground our discussion and framework. At 10:10, we'll hear opening remarks from our co-chairs, Director Susan DeMorris and Bertha Hayden. And then we will move forward to agency spotlights, highlighting key updates from our state partners. We'll take a short break at 11:25 a.m. and reconvene at 11:40 for updates on the Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board. At 11:50, we'll hear from our subcommittee chairs on the 2025 subcommittee reflections. And we will then move forward with the lived experience segment at 12:10 p.m. and our EDJCC discussion and recommendations to Secretary Johnson. Public comment opens at 12:40 and will close with final remarks at 12:55, adjourning at 1 p.m. So without further ado, I'm pleased to hand it over to our state co-chair, Director Susan DeMorris, and our stakeholder co-chair, Bertha Hayden.
Thank you very much, Ranjana, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final meeting of the year, which does not mean the work does not continue every day. I was especially looking forward to today's meeting. I just had our safety training at our online safety training at the Department of Aging, as all state employees do, and was reminded of so many ways that individuals can be exploited and taken advantage of in the workplace and in their personal lives. And I've been working with a close family friend who has had one of the case studies that we talk about here that involves everything you don't want to see. An older woman who has cognitive impairment but has not been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. And over the course of the last year, gave over $500,000 to over the internet and sought to a second mortgage on her home unbeknownst to her family. And I just am incredibly grateful to every member of the EDJCC, official members, subcommittee members, and our state partners. It is a complicated web, and you're all doing your part to help individuals and families. And I just got to see firsthand how easy it is for an older adult to be exploited, and even when surrounded by family. It is just heartbreaking. And this is one example among hundreds of thousands across our state and millions across our nation. So I'm just incredibly grateful to all of you in your day jobs, and that you take the extra time today to be here and to be members of the Elder and Disability Justice Coordinating Council. So thank you all. And thank you also to our CDA staff team, who does such a fantastic job organizing and preparing for these meetings. It's now my honor to introduce you to a new member of the EDJCC. I'm delighted to have a new colleague in our California State Long-Term Care Ombudsman, Faye Gordon, who was appointed by Governor Newsom about 2 months ago and took on her role at the beginning of October. Faye previously was with the Administration for Community Living, and before that with Justice and Aging. She's well known to many of you because she's had a very distinguished career focused on elder justice. And we're just delighted, Faye, to have you as our new California State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Welcome.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks so much for those kind words. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Should I introduce myself a little bit?
Please, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Ranjana, for putting all of this together. And I'll just introduce myself briefly. I know many of you, I'm seeing so many wonderful colleagues here. I just wanted to share a little bit about how elder justice has been part of my professional background and why it means so much to me to finally be seated at the table as part of this coordinating committee. I actually had the opportunity to work on some of the Elder Justice Act back pre-2010 when it was being drafted as part of the Affordable Care Act. So I've been long aware of these concerns and have been very impressed at the way states have taken on elder justice and focused on this issue over the past 15 years. With this particular coordinating committee, I remember when I was working for the National Center on Law and Elder Rights, which is the training and technical assistance center that Justice and Aging runs in coordination with the Administration for Community Living. And I remember at the time the Master Plan on Aging was happening and stakeholders were advocating for some sort of coordinating committee to really highlight the housing, income, health, disability, and aging issues together with an elder justice lens. And I thought, gosh, that would be so cool to participate in that, and how great that California is taking the lead on really having this cross-agency, cross-stakeholder approach to elder justice. And then I had the opportunity to listen to many of these meetings. Ranjana and Susan were gracious enough to allow me to listen to them when I was with the Administration for Community Living as the regional administrator. And I was so impressed by the work. I was so impressed by the research that went into every meeting. There was always data and information and thought behind it, which I think is why elder justice advocacy can be so powerful, as there's always incredible stories, but also data and research that so many of you put together to back it up. And now it's just very meaningful to me as the state ombudsman to be able to bring that lens, and really the lens of residents' rights advocacy, to these gatherings. So thank you, Susan and Ranjana. I really appreciate being here and looking forward to getting to know all of you. I'm going to put my email in the chat because I'm really starting to get to know people and do introductory meetings. So please reach out if I haven't already reached out to you. Please say hi. And it's great to be here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Faye. So glad you're part of this group now. So I've got just a few slides I'm going to share with you. I mentioned this is a complicated web that older adults and consumers find them and their families find themselves in. A key pillar of our aging network statewide are the 33 California area agencies on aging. And I wanted to just quickly move through the culmination of 3 years of stakeholder engagement that CDA has led on a project that started out with the name California 2030. It's how we can strengthen the aging network in preparation for the year 2030, when we all know 1 in 4 Californians will be age 60 or older. We have a webinar coming up at the end of this month for the public. I encourage all of you to join that webinar to learn more. I'm breezing through this now, but I felt it was really important for this group to understand where we're headed with the AAA network. So this slide shows you we did extensive stakeholder engagement over the course of 3 years, working with the California Association for Area Agencies on Aging, the California Commission on Aging, the California State Association of Counties, the County Welfare Directors Association, and the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. We also held 80 stakeholder interviews. Many of you on this screen were interviewed as part of this process. And we did intensive work with each of our 33 AAAs. That took the form of in-person interviews, surveys, webinars, and other convenings. We also conducted California's first ever consumer survey, and we were pleased to have nearly 18,000 respondents from all 58 counties weighing in on what mattered most to them. All of the materials referenced on this slide are available on our website on the California 2030 page. So you can see recordings, summary documents, surveys, and more. Next slide, please. I mentioned the focus is how can we strengthen the network, and as this coordinating council aspires to us, how can we make things more consistent and standardized statewide, so it doesn't matter what zip code you live in, what county, or which PSA, planning and service area, you're served by. So we're focused on 3 primary areas. The first is adopting consistent data reporting standards and timelines for our 3 flagship programs. These are programs that are required by federal law under the Older Americans Act and are funded by the federal government and the state government in many cases. It would be our congregate and home delivered meals, caregiver supports, and information assistance. In about 18 months, we'll have public-facing data dashboards so everyone can get a snapshot of what's happening with these 3 core programs. Second, we're updating the intrastate funding formula. It has been nearly 30 years since California last updated their funding formula. And as we all know, things have changed dramatically, especially population shifts. So we have a new formula that weights equally 5 factors: age, disability, income, geographic isolation, and equity. So we will be, we've unveiled the formula and proposed that to our network, and we will be working on codifying that through statute. We also, in our state plan approval by the Administration for Community Living, just last week or 2 weeks ago, they made special note that we're out of compliance with the federal government and we need to update that formula promptly. And then the third is looking at how a planning and service area, that's the geographic footprint for an area, and the area agency on aging, that's the service delivery model, how those are designated and de-designated, and making certain that that process is transparent and allows for ample public and community input. Those changes will be made through regulation. Next slide. So a busy slide here, but it shows that each of these 3 work streams have their own work plan in terms of socializing, sharing out the recommendations, and then whether it's legislation, regulation, or program memos and policy changes, how we will be implementing this over the next 4 years with the goal of having everything well in place by July 1st of 2029, when we embark on our next 4-year state plan for the Older Americans Act. So next slide. Great. Oops, we'll go back to that one. We have one transition. So there you have it. You've got the link to our website if you want to learn more. And please do join us for that webinar if you have any questions or concerns about California 2030. And now I'd love to turn the microphone and the camera over to my state co-chair, Berta Hayden, with Bet Zedek, a wonderful, fantastic, impassioned leader. And Berta, please take it away and welcome today.
Good morning. Thank you, Director Morris, and thank you for that update on California 30. I'm excited for the webinar. If you haven't had a chance, for those of you on the call, to read the last report on the 2030, it's a great report, really the tailored approach to thinking about how older adults from different circumstances are experiencing the system to better strengthen the system, I think is innovative and is really going to better position our community. I'd also like to take the opportunity to welcome all of our EDJCC members, partners, and members of the public joining today. When we started our first meeting of the year for the EDJCC, I think it was shortly after the wildfires in Los Angeles, which is where I'm positioned. And I was so grateful for the work of the network of the EDJCC and the dedication of the resources that had gone into the work we do so that we could better respond to those emergencies, and heartened by the work ahead to continue to improve systems and resources for older adults. I'd also like to acknowledge that there are so many changes going on within our networks and increasing needs in the communities we serve, and it can feel very overwhelming. And I know that many of you who are working directly with older adults in the community are taking time away from those services to be here with us. So I again want to thank you for that and appreciate your partnership. And I also would like to specifically thank our other co-chairs, Vivian Mombaco and Achilles Cerrone, for their leadership over the past year. Both Achilles and Vivian have decided not to return as chairs for the next year's meeting, and I would like to ask them to reconsider, but also just genuinely thank them for their collaboration. I think the 3 of us really appreciate and take very seriously the role of being here to reflect the general membership and the work and the mission of the EDJCC. Vivian and Achilles are such collaborative, generous thought leaders, but their decades of experience have also enhanced the work we've done here. So thank you so much, Achilles and Vivian. To keep us on schedule, I will transition to the beginning of our meeting, the bulk of our agenda. So with that, let's begin with our first agenda item, and I'd like to hand it over to Paul de Herrera with the California Department of Public Health. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me here this morning. And today I'll be going over some of the work that the Department of Public Health is doing. Next slide, please. Today I'll go through some introductions, let you know a little bit more about myself, and then I'll be covering some of the statutes and regulations that cover the requirements protecting elders from abuse in our facility types. I'll run through some of the survey priorities that CDPH currently has. I will give a brief discussion about the criminal background reviews that we do on our certified nurse assistants that are taking care of these residents. I will walk through a bit of the investigations and what we do, and then describe some of the actions that we take on our certificate holders if we are substantiating any of those investigations. And then we'll have some time at the end to go over some questions and answers. Next slide, please. All right, my name is Paul D. Herrera. I am the branch chief of the investigations branch. I've been with the Center for Healthcare Quality since I was a student assistant back in 1999. So I've been here with CDPH for quite a while, and I've had various roles pertaining mainly to the licensing and certification of healthcare workers. So I'm more of a subject matter expert on that side, but I'll be covering a lot of the information that also goes over what we do within facilities. So as I go through that, please bear with me. If you have questions on that, I'll do my best. And if I'm not sure, I'll get back to you in a short time. Next slide, please. Okay, one more. So first, the long-term care reporting requirements. Next slide, please. Okay, we'll start with Title 42, the Code of Federal Regulations. This states that the resident has the right to be protected from abuse, neglect, exploitation, and misuse of their property, and that the facility must develop and implement policies and procedures that prohibit and prevent abuse, investigate any such allegation, and include training if it's appropriate and needed. Each covered individual must also report any reasonable suspicion of a crime against the individual who is a resident or receiving care from that facility. In response to the allegations, the facility must ensure that they are reported immediately, but no later than 2 hours and within 24 hours if the allegation involves abuse or results in serious bodily injury. Next slide, please.
My apologies, Paul. This is Jackie Tompkins. Your audio seems to be going in and out. I don't know if it's the proximity to the speaker on your. Just want to ensure that the information you're sharing is being heard today.
Okay, I will try to get a little closer or speak up. Is that better?
Yes, it sounds. Thank you.
Okay. Health and Safety Code is the next section I'll go through, section 1418.91. This states that long-term healthcare facilities must report all incidents of alleged abuse and suspected abuse of a resident of the facility to the department immediately or within 24 hours. It further states that failure to comply with this requirement must be a Class B violation that will be issued to the facility. Next slide, please. The next few slides I'll walk through. Oh, did we miss one or? Okay, sorry. Next one, the Welfare and Institution Code. A mandated reporter who has observed or knowledge of the incident that appears to be physical abuse, abandonment, abduction, isolation, financial abuse, or neglect must report the alleged abuse immediately or as soon as practically possible. If this is reported by telephone, they must submit a written report within 2 working days. If the incident of abuse occurred in one of the long-term care facilities with no serious bodily injury by a dementia resident, the reporter must verbally report within 24 hours to both the long-term care ombudsman and local law enforcement. All other instances, the reporter must submit to the specified agencies a verbal report immediately or as soon as practically possible, but no longer than 2 hours, and a written report within 24 hours. Next slide, please. All right, the next few slides, I'll go over some of our survey priorities, both the federal piece and the state piece. Next slide, please. In relation to the federal priorities, I was informed that there hasn't been too many changes from the last fiscal year. The teams are still focusing on their tier 1 workload, also focusing on the patient care impact surveys. This includes our immediate jeopardies and special focus facilities. And then next we have our general acute care hospitals, the EMTALAs and complaint validation surveys. And then lastly, the POW, or the previous and overdue workload. Given the government, the federal shutdown, we are still working on immediate jeopardy and complaints coming in. And then once that shifts, we will then focus back on the tier 1 workload. Next slide, please. These are some of the state workloads. So our Center for Healthcare Quality, that's the center that has both the district offices that do the surveys and my team that handles the healthcare workers. As you can see, for the most part, they mirror what the federal workload priorities are. So we've got the tier 1 recertification workload. We see some trends with the acute psychiatric hospitals, so that is part of our priorities. Also the new complaints from the facility reported incidents, and then complaint backlog, both long-term care and long-term care. Next slide, please. To cover some of our facility complaint investigation history here, back in 2021, April of 2021, our center applied various continuing policy process improvement strategies to eliminate our long-term care backlog. So we implement a lot of strategies to focus on that. We originally began at that time with just under 22,000 backlog complaints, which are over 60 days, and we're able to eliminate that entire backlog as of July of 2024. Next slide, please.
Hi, Paul. It's Ranjana Maharaj. You're going in and out again.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Audio. Thank you.
I'll get closer. All right, next I will go through some of our criminal background reviews and the process there. Next slide. One of the elements of certification for our certified nurse assistants is they have to get live scan fingerprinting. So all certified nurse assistants, as part of their initial application process, must submit live scan fingerprints to the Department of Justice. So they will get their fingerprints rolled at a live scan agency, and the Department of Justice will send over criminal record information for our criminal background section to review. If an applicant does not have any criminal history and no hit on their criminal offender record, the applicant is deemed eligible for certification, and pending the completion of all other certification requirements, the certified nurse assistant will then be issued a certificate that's valid for 2 years. Next slide, please. If the individual does have criminal history and we find a conviction that is substantially related to the duties and functions of the certified nurse assistant, we do take that into consideration. And if that is the case, then we will request more information from the applicant and take that under review before making a final determination. If the information is received, we may take some sort of administrative action against the certification. This could include something from a suspension of the certificate for up to 2 years, or we could revoke the certification from the individual. Next slide, please. When we do request additional information from the individual, this is some of the information that we do request. We will ask for some job history, character references, any kind of court orders or information that the court, if they've required them to do any kind of classes or pay restitution. We'll request probationary reports, police reports, and or other statements or information that the applicant feels relevant for us to review in making our final determination. Next slide, please. Next, I'll go over the investigation that is done on those same individuals. Next slide, please. Our team will receive allegations. This will be coming from our district offices. It may come from the residents themselves, family members, or any member of the public. If the allegation, once it's investigated, is substantiated, we will take similar or same actions as mentioned above. We could put the individual on what's called a diversion program, where we will monitor them for a time and may require them to take certain classes, or we could deny an initial application, suspend the current certification, or potentially revoke the certification as well. Next slide, please. With those administrative actions, I'll go over some of the next steps that the applicant has if they had any administrative action taken against them. Next step. If we do take an administrative action, we send a notice to the certified nurse assistant, and they do have the ability to appeal that and go up in front of an administrative law judge and have a hearing, at which point the CNA could represent themselves, or they may have representation, and the department then sends representation as well. And the administrative law judge will give a proposed decision that we will then implement if it is upheld, and that action may stand with the individual or get overturned. Next slide, please. Okay, that concludes the information that I have to present today and the work that we are doing at Department of Public Health. Please let me know if there are any questions. And apologies for the audio. I was mentioning earlier, I got a new laptop and was trying to set it up right before, and it's not cooperating.
We understand. Thank you so much, Paul, for that informative presentation. Are there any questions from the council members or discussion before we, excuse me, I apologize. Before we take questions, I believe we're going to have the next presentation. And with that, I'd like to welcome Allison Kanyani and Nathaniel Talun from the Department of Developmental Services. So everyone, please hold on to your questions for our previous presenter. Allison, Nathaniel?
Thank you so much, Bertha, and thank you all so much for having us here today. Can I get the next slide, please? Okay, thank you so much. My name is Allison Giannini, and I am the Aging Services Branch Manager with the Department of Developmental Services. We are very excited to be here today. I'm with my colleague, Nathaniel Talion, the Office of Risk Management Branch Chief. Today, I'm just going to provide a little bit of a high-level overview of DDS, and then I'll hand it over to Nate, and he's going to provide some more in-depth details. The Department of Developmental Services, under the Lanterman Act, is responsible for overseeing and coordination and delivery of services and supports to more than 480,000 Californians with intellectual and/or developmental disabilities. Next slide, please. This is just a high-level overview of our system structure. So DDS is under the California Health and Human Services Agency. And in addition to managing some state operative services such as the Mobile Crisis Response Teams, referred to as CAST, or our community-based acute crisis homes, DDS contracts with the 21 California regional centers, which are nonprofit private corporations. Those regional centers provide service coordination to individuals and contract with service providers who provide direct service to individuals. So this is an important distinction. The regional centers themselves do not provide direct services, rather they contract with end vendor providers who then provide the services, but the regional centers provide that coordination of care. Next slide, please. Here's just a very non-exhaustive overview of the role of DDS. DDS and the regional center do work very close together to serve Californians, but we have distinct roles. So while both entities implement state and federal laws and regulations, DDS's primary roles are in leadership and policy direction, overseeing the coordination and accountability for delivery of services, managing our state operated services, and then, like I had mentioned earlier, contracting with the 21 California regional centers. Next slide, please. I just wanted to highlight some data today for our discussion. DDS is responsible for services for over 480,000 people with IDD, like I said. Of those folks, between the ages of 40 to 59, there's a little over 43,000, and there's a little over 20,000 individuals who are 60 and older. Next slide. And then now I just wanted to orient us all to some data that is available on DDS's webpage. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here specifically discussing this data. Instead, I just wanted to bring this to folks' attention on where to find it and give some navigation tips. So on the slide, and thank you, Nate, for popping that in the chat. You read my mind. So on this slide, you will see a screenshot from the Risk Management and Mitigation dashboard on the DDS website. Both the link and the QR code will bring you to that dashboard. And Nate put the link in the tab, or the link in the chat, which is great. So when on that dashboard, like the view you see on this slide, you'll notice that you'll be able to navigate between pages. So there's arrows on the bottom to navigate left or right to view the different pages and different data. The first 2 pages of this will provide an overview of what are called special incident reports, or SIRS, and then definitions. And then on pages 3 through 11, the data are based on different qualifiers. So some of the data pages have the option to select different slicers, such as residence type or incident type, such as suspected abuse or medication error. And then on page 7, which is actually the page displayed here on this slide, you can select to view the data by age groupings or others information, which we've done today. And then on pages 5 and 8, you can specifically choose the age group you would like to view. And with that, I would love to hand it over to my colleague, Nathaniel Talion, the Office of Risk Management Branch Chief, who's going to go over some of the elements as it relates to this data and speak to the efforts the department is engaged in to improve reporting practices and strengthen oversight. These efforts are rooted in the regulatory updates that are improving how this data is collected and reported.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Allison. Can everybody hear me okay? Perfect. So good morning. It's not afternoon. I'm living in the future. Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Talion. Feel free to call me Nate. I am the branch chief for the Department of Developmental Services Office of Risk Management. First off, it's wonderful to be able to introduce myself to all of you today. For a brief background on myself, I began my journey in this field in the late 90s, working at a state hospital. It's interesting because Paul mentioned he was a student assistant at one point in his career and brought me back to when I first started my journey. And then I've worked at a regional center. I also worked at a therapy provider, and also as a person-centered thinking trainer in previous roles before joining the department in 2020. With all that being said, thinking about my journey and looking across this virtual room, it reminds me of how far we have ventured, and most importantly, the path we must continue to travel and pave to support those individuals that we support through our collective efforts. With that, and as Allison mentioned, we really wanted to take the time today to go over collective works on updating Title 17 regulations as it relates to special incident reporting. Specifically here, before we dive into the next slide, just wanted to go over some terminology for folks to be familiar with and some acronyms. But SIR, or Special Incident Reports, essentially these are reports filed by regional centers to inform the Department of Developmental Services of events that occur for individuals served within our system. They're often categorized as special incidents or perhaps even adverse events. HCBS, or Home and Community-Based Services. Just a little bit of background and context. In 1981, it was signed into law that Medicaid Home and Community-Based Services waiver programs, Section 1915C of the Social Security Act, essentially would be available for individuals who qualified. In short and in summary, these home and community-based services is a waiver program that accesses federal funding for services for individuals who qualify. Office of Inspector General, or OIG, this really refers to the Office of Inspector General Office, and we make mention in this presentation of a recent audit in 2021 that spoke to some spaces where the department could improve on special incident reporting. With that, I'm happy to share that considering that audit, recommendations were taken into account and everything has been addressed, and essentially that audit has been cleared. Let's go ahead and move forward to the next slide. Awesome. So as I made mention, essentially, of these regulatory updates, it's really important to level set and anchor ourselves on how these changes came to be. The intent of the regulatory changes was to further establish requirements and clarifications to ensure that no incident falls through any cracks simply because of where it happened. These regulation changes are intended to improve the quality of oversight, safety, and response to the individualized needs for those individuals and families that we serve and support. With that, these changes were cost neutral, which means that they didn't require any additional state funding or resources, but instead focused on improving efficiency and clarity by updating these special incident reporting regulations. These final regulations essentially were formally approved on June 11th, 2025, and they will take effect on May 1st, 2026. This gives us a transition period or a launch period to prepare the system, which includes the staff at regional centers, providers, the community, as well as release resources, update all partners on these changes, and update collective processes, which are all underway. One key item that I want to note on what solicited these updates and changes really stemmed from bringing alignment to ensure that our state regulations met federally required standards of home and community-based services waiver final rule, as well as Medicaid waiver assurances. These changes also directly respond and address to the recommendations of the OIG audit back from 2021 that I mentioned earlier, which identified areas where reporting and oversight could be strengthened and essentially resolved through our system's work to date. The final regulation changes or final regulation text can actually be found on the DDS website, which I will put in the chat momentarily. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So the first major component to highlight are changes in various definitions. Clear definitions for most reportable special incidents have been established and enhanced. Previously, many of the terms were left open to interpretation, which created inconsistencies of data collection across our regional centers and providers. With these new definitions, reporting can now be more consistent statewide, which is now what both the Office of Inspector General and HCBS, or Home and Community-Based Service Waiver, or the Access Rule, essentially requires. The next element here is universal SIR reporting, where we're also modified to establish clear reporting requirements. This is really to help providers and regional center staff make the right call quickly and removes that guesswork that led to inconsistencies or even often slowed reporting in the past. And an area to really emphasize is on all incidents must be reported within major categories, which means all deaths must be reported, all crimes must be reported under the victim of crime category, with new crime types being added. All incidents of reasonably suspected abuse or neglect must be reported, with new incident types being added as well. And lastly, all serious injuries and accidents for those under vendored care must be reported, again, with new categories that have been added. This is really significant because by requiring vendors to report what they learn, whether it happened where they were present, or if it was on a specific location or site, or at home or elsewhere, these regulatory updates ensures that regional centers are alerted quickly and can follow up with the person to check on safety and well-being, verify notifications to protective agencies like APS, CPS, law enforcement, etc., and coordinate services or interventions as needed to address those moments. And in the bigger picture, really track patterns over time, regardless of location. Another significant change is the clarification around what counts as being under vendored care. The regulations outline providers with 24/7 responsibility. For example, community care facilities, supported living services, or family home agencies have 24/7 responsibility. So individuals in those programs are always considered under vendored care. The same goes for long-term healthcare facilities, which also must report incidents as they carry that 24/7 responsibility as well. We can go ahead and jump to the next slide. Next, there are important changes under reasonably suspected abuse and neglect. It's really timely in terms of some of the things that Paul described when it comes to mandated reporting, which here we'll see some overlap. The regulations now define key terms, as well as outline some language that helps come to solid conclusions as it relates to definitions. and also specifically addresses issues like abusive restraint. A key notation here is that a special incident report must be completed for any mandated abuse or neglect report filed. Again, referencing what Paul had mentioned. Anytime that there's a filing with a protective agency, our vendors or our regional center system is required to file an SIR report with the department, even if the incident occurred outside of vendored care. Seclusion must also be reported as reasonably suspected abuse, and the language around abusive restraint has been updated to become more sensitive for reporting and data collection for the department. In the area of abuse and neglect, terms are now defined, and seclusion is always considered a reportable as suspected abuse. But with those definitions further defined and clarified, it really sets the foundation of what must be reported. And again, making mention of any time that there is a filing with a protective agency, an SIR must be filed. Serious injuries and accidents. Several new categories have been added here. Specifically, what we've expanded on is update to serious injury and accident reporting. There are new categories for certain types of bruises, injury from aggression from a peer or contact with a peer, pressure injuries, head injuries. Distinguishing there are elements in the language that distinguish between internal bleeding and bruises, as well as language and clarification surrounding medical treatment beyond first aid and medical attention. Next slide, please. Thank you so much. Lastly, needed to note some changes as it relates to unplanned hospitalizations and emergency room visits. Unplanned hospitalizations must now be reported as soon as the admission is known to be related to a reportable condition and without waiting for discharge or discharge information or documents. This really allows for quicker information sharing to create a person-centered approach in ensuring appropriate service planning and risk mitigation on that individual level. Bowel obstruction was also added as its own new reportable condition. We have also have a new reporting category under extended emergency room stays, where these are now reportable when a hospital emergency room for an individual served lasts for more than 5 days. This also allows for a cohesive information sharing to better support the person served upon discharge and pursuit of risk mitigation. Next slide, please. So essentially here we just have the events that will take place as it relates to preparing our partners in these regulatory changes. Please, I just want to make mention too, is that many of these things are currently underway with some of these components really moving towards finalization. The first thing I wanted to mention is just the resource of a regional center special incident reporting guideline, as well as a vendor special incident reporting guideline. These two documents is really intended to act as the foundation for all training materials when it comes to Title 17 requirements as it relates to special incident reporting, as well as required elements and actions. Like I mentioned, these will act as really that training resource and foundation for a lot of these materials. The department is also currently developing and preparing release of training videos to serve as quick informational training resources for all partners. These will be posted on the DDS website in the early to late winter, as we are already in fall. And then live training sessions for regional center staff will also be conducted early of 2026, or will initiate in early of 2026. The intent is to have several sessions held throughout the state with regional centers, providers, as well as community partner groups, and also holding a public town hall session. The town hall meeting will really be meant to be for advocates, self-advocates, families, and other interested members of the public. Next slide, please. Awesome. With that, I'll hand it back over to Allison.
Thank you, Nate. That was really good information. I appreciate all the updates. With more accurate and comprehensive data, involved parties will be able to address and current abuse, and hopefully will support with informing practices to reduce future abuse, right? So informed data systems mean improved identification, which leads to improved responding and prevention. With all of this data, we still need our system partners coming together like we are today. It is important that we engage in cross-system collaboration, including information sharing, and I can't emphasize enough the importance of providing a seat at the table for each other. We need to deepen the communication and shared responsibility and leadership, making collaboration, coordination, and integration key to improving systems to better support Californians. And thank you very much.
Thank you to our presenters for the informative update. Are there any questions from our council members for both the presentation from Allison and Nathaniel and Paul? While we're waiting to see if anybody has a question, I would like to ask Allison and Nathaniel about the system that are in regional centers for everyday emergencies. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to the officer of a day system that's there to also support crisis situations or potential abuse situations that an individual that's part of the regional center might be experiencing.
Sure, we can speak to that. Nate, do you want to answer that? I feel like you're better suited for that question.
Sure. When it comes to everyday emergencies, each regional center has specific special incident or risk management staff available. So essentially, if moments do come up, there are designated staff members to address those types of items. Bertha, as you make mention of officer of the day, I can only speak to the regional center that I came from and kind of know the operations of some other regional centers, but many regional centers have staff that serve as on-call staff to get those types of calls. But in the world that I work in the sense of the department's risk management system, each regional center has risk management staff that oversee these types of incidents as they come in.
Thank you. And I see Lisa has a question.
Yeah, I put this in the chat also. Since this is a coordinating council, I just thought it bared mentioning as part of these presentations how the agencies coordinate in terms of mandatory reporting, if somebody might speak to that. And also that it just also bears mentioning that in our subcommittee group that used to be APS reporting that's now expanded, we've talked about some of the kind of misunderstandings or lack of information about how the agencies interact in the reporting process and following up and just that whole process. I wanted to kind of I think it's important for this group to know what that coordination is and maybe even some of the pain spots in it.
I can touch on a piece of that. A lot of that's with my partners in the district office, but I do know that we do work very closely with the ombudsman and meet regularly with them on specific cases. If they have additional information, we will work with them and get that information so that we can do a productive and thorough investigation on either the facility or the certified nurse assistant that may be involved. And then I also see that you mentioned DSS in there. And we do also work with social services. I know my team specifically also has an information sharing agreement. So if there are administrative actions taken by certain individuals with social services and vice versa, we share that information so that caregivers aren't going from one department to the other in providing similar care, so that we're sharing notes there. Just because one of us had taken an action doesn't necessarily mean that the other can, but the information is shared and investigations are conducted when needed.
Thank you, Lisa, for your question, Paul, for that answer. Megan?
Thank you very much. This is Megan Anderson from the Division of Medi-Cal Fraud and Elder Abuse. My question is for Nathaniel. When you have suspected abuse that you believe could be criminal in nature, who are you reporting those incidents to? Are you reporting to the Department of Justice, local authorities? I'm curious.
So, in terms of special incidents that are criminal in nature, the regional center receives that information and then is required to submit a special incident report to the department. Within the department, we take that information, analyze and review that data, and then review those any incidents that require immediate attention and review internally with our other offices and divisions on appropriate action. I can't say, well, that process is in terms of just what takes place is very standard, but dependent upon what information received, it's very much case by case. But that's what happens at the state level when we receive that type of information. I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the question.
Scott?
Hi, thank you, everyone. I'm Scott Perillo. I'm a deputy district attorney, so a county prosecutor that have been the elder abuse prosecutor here for about 15 years. And I really appreciate all the information, all the work. Paul, I don't know if you remember me, but before COVID started, I had a case that I came to you kind of just brainstorming on how things may work better. So I know what, I don't think we could solve all the world's problems just by me asking a question here. So I guess I just wanted to pose the thought to everyone. This is an unprecedented group, this council and this legal services committee, the experience that everyone has. And the prior conversations that we've had is, maybe everything is great, maybe everything is as good as it can be, but we were bold enough just to say, hey, if we were all brainstorming while we have some momentum with all these experts right now, are we doing things the best way? Are there other states that are doing things better? And I could just offer you the law enforcement perspective, because I work every day with detectives and prosecutors. And I see Megan and Jennifer here, that we've been in the elder abuse world for a long time. So I'd say we're in the 1% knowing the interaction between all these different agencies. But I could tell you that 99.9% of investigators, detectives, prosecutors in the state of California don't know when something happens in a facility, they don't know the difference. They don't know who to report it to. They don't know which investigators are looking at that report and for what reasons, whether it's licensing or whether it's for the facility purpose or the actual employee. So they don't know that other investigators from state agencies might be talking to witnesses that could impact criminal investigations. So I just kind of wanted to throw it out there that, I'm always educating people locally in San Diego. They call me and they say, okay, I have a sexual assault in a nursing home. What should I do? And I start running through things with the detective, and they're shocked to hear, I don't know, that there's all this other infrastructure. So from a criminal justice standpoint, I think we can strive to make things better. Having a law enforcement response, that's what we try to tell people down here, like having the police come out is the best option if for any eventual criminal justice intervention. The other thing that we're missing is there could be repeated suspects within the DSS system and the DPH system, but a police officer that gets one report about maybe a CNA that did something inappropriate, they don't have a database to check and see all the prior complaints, that there might be something there, or it's just a random complaint. So again, I am happy to work constructively, and I think I have I have the experience of actual cases where I've seen it and working with detectives. I'm happy to talk through some of these case studies so that we can collaboratively look at, are we doing this the best way, or can we strive to do better while there's some momentum with this incredible team here. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And we should keep this part of the conversation going when we also get to the subcommittee updates, because I think there's more to say on that. Are there any other questions from council members? Well, with that, I'd like to thank all of our presenters this morning and appreciating them for helping us have a deeper understanding of the agencies that we all collaborate with and how to better understand the work that they're doing now and in the next upcoming months. I believe that we are at our break portion. Carol, may I turn it over to you for logistics?
Sure. Logistically, we're going to take a break. So please feel free to turn off your camera and turn and mute yourself. Go take a break. It's 15 minutes. So what time, Ranjana, should we come back? Name a time. 11:25. Does that work for you?
11:25 sounds good, Carol.
Okay, so we will be back at 11:25. If we can remind our council members to turn on their cameras to make sure that they're ready to go, and then we can move on with the second portion of our meeting. So,
and Carol, I apologize. I had failed to just in terms of those members attending from the public that we will have an opportunity that they can hold their questions and contribute during the public comment period of today's meeting. Apologies for not noting that. So to the person that's an attendee who has their hands up, we will be able to get to your question during the public comment portion. Thank you.
Thank you for noticing that, Bertha. Yes, we will be doing the public comment later on in the agenda. So if you could hold your hand, we will get to you then. Have a great break, and we'll see you soon. 11:25. Thank you. So we invite our council members to turn on their camera to show you are present. And which ASL will be going? I see your camera's off, Adrian. Great. I'm going to spotlight you right now. So it's 11:26. We're running ahead of schedule, so I think that 1 extra minute is not terrible. And I think that if we can just remind our council members to go ahead and turn on their cameras to show they're present and ready to go. Bertha, do you have anything that you would like to say in the welcome back? We ready to go?
Yes, just to welcome to our next presenter, Sarah Steenhausen, the CDA Deputy Director, and we're so excited to hear about this important new update from the Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board at LEAP. Thank you, Sarah, for coming today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Berta, and thank you to all of the members of the committee. Appreciate all the great work you're doing. I'm really pleased to be able to talk to you all about the progress in establishing California's first Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board, which is a key recommendation in our Master Plan for Aging as outlined in Initiative 49. Next, please. Next slide, please. So the purpose of AdLib was really to inform California's understanding of the issues that impact its older adults, people with disabilities, and family caregivers by hearing from those people in the community who have truly want to share their lived experience and using that lived experience to advance the Master Plan for Aging and to embed the recommendations throughout the 5 bold goals of the Master Plan for Aging. So we worked very carefully with our Equity Advisory Committee on Aging and Disability, a work group in that committee, to help establish the process, the membership criteria, the recruitment and scoring process, and the timeline of the Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board, which is what we are calling AdLib. We are truly grateful to our Master Plan for Aging Foundation partners because they have supported the establishment of this committee for the first year, which enabled us to recruit a consultant and some resources to reimburse the members for their time on this committee. Next slide, please. So we were really intentional about thinking about a number of factors for participation in the ad lib. We only had space for between 12 to 15 members, but we really tried to keep it to 12. And we are very pleased that we have representation of older adults, people with disabilities, and family caregivers from all areas of the state, the northern, the north central, Bay Area, central region, South Coast, as well as the inland deserts region. Next slide, please. So I'm really pleased now to be able to introduce you to each of our ad lib board members. I will say we had a very extensive targeted outreach campaign to try and find people with lived experience from across the state. And we received nearly 50 applications and really, really wonderful people from all across the community. So here are our members. First, we have Cindy Soto, who is an older adult who has had a lifelong disability and really can inform us of her experience living with a disability as she ages. Mina is an older adult who resides in San Francisco and is very interested in addressing how people can better navigate the system and address the needs of those living with complex health challenges. Teresa is an elder tribal member who also serves as a caregiver, not only to her family, but many of her friends in the community. And Sari is from Sacramento, and he is a senior and a caregiver conservator to his disabled son, who he's provided support to in that role for the past 30 years. Next slide, please. Dr. William D. we actually call him Dr. Bill. He is an older adult with a lifelong disability, and he also has been caring for his wife, Carol, for for the past several years, and really has a lot to reflect on as both an older adult living with a disability and as a family caregiver. But Jean Ma comes to us from San Francisco, and she resides in a Section 202 affordable housing in San Francisco. And she's also a caregiver to her disabled niece, and she's been doing that caregiving for the past 10 years. And Lilith is also a disabled older adult who provides a lot of experience in her community as she's sought to navigate the complex system of care and supporting others that she knows in the community. Kevin is deaf, and he is also a neurodiverse young adult and has a lot of experience to help inform our understanding of the issues that impact older adults who are living with disabilities. Next slide, please. Debbie comes to us as an older adult who also has been a caregiver to her mother, who unfortunately passed away from dementia, but now is also a caregiver to her sister, who is unfortunately struggling with dementia as well. So she's really experienced a lot in navigating the system and understanding the unique challenges facing individuals aging with Alzheimer's and dementia, as well as the caregivers. Carolyn is an older adult who also has lived experience as the primary caregiver for her partner, who has multiple morbidity and chronic conditions. Carlos, he comes to us from Southern California, and he's an older adult with a disability. And he previously was a resident of Rancho Los Amigos Rehabilitation Skilled Nursing Facility, and he continues to be an advocate for residents' rights. And finally, we have Jennifer, who's a younger adult who's lived for her whole life since she was actually 6 years old with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and now also serves as a caregiver for her aging parents. So she can, of course, reflect on the system, both from her own experience and then that experience that she has serving her parents. So we're really excited about all of this. We did have our first meeting on September 29th. It really was kind of helped to set the table for everybody to get to know them. We're having our next meeting with them on November 21st. And we are going to be engaging members across all of our stakeholder committees to solicit the chair's input about how we can structure conversations to really get to know the members of this Aging and Disability Lived Experience Advisory Board and help inform our understanding of the issues that impact the population. So again, that we can embed it throughout the 5 bold goals of the MPA. So it's critically important that there's this kind of back and forth of information and feedback between the AdLib to our Equity Advisory Committee that's kind of serving as the facilitator, and then with all of you back to the committee. So we look forward to keeping you updated and getting your input as we move forward. And I'm happy to take any questions. Are there any questions that anybody has? Or comments or thoughts?
Hi, Sarah. What a robust interest in application process. I remember seeing the campaign. Do you want to share any inspirations why some of the committee members perhaps like sought out this experience and why it was so important for them to be in part of this group?
Absolutely. I mean, it was really, really amazing to hear from all of them. And I think what was particularly touching, I think, to all of us who were, it's not an open meeting, but there was such, once they got used to and understanding really how the flow would go, they all were very, very encouraged to share their own life stories and the challenges that they face just in the first meeting, and helping us get to know them, and really being eager not only to share their own stories but to address the broader system issues. That was something that we heard consistently, is a recognition that what they're facing, what their families are facing at the local level is reflects a much bigger picture across the system, and they're really eager to see how their recommendations can translate into action for the master plan for aging.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but is this also the group where, for example, if I'm as a legal services trying to design a new program on how to connect with older adults to teach them fraud awareness, that I can share with them like a program design and get feedback? Is that the group that's also doing that service, that there was a flyer created for, or informational flyer?
So I don't know if in particular that this group will be definitely responding to that, but we are trying to figure out how we can get feedback from them on where solutions might be with the broader system issues. But Berta, there must have also been, that could have also related to some of our other LTSS initiatives. We've had several focus groups. And our LTSS financing initiative, for example, where we're seeking solutions to the system issues that they identified. So that might be what you're referring to in a few areas of the state where we're having focus groups for that. If you recently saw that flyer.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. That's what that was in reference to. So, and we're excited to share all those findings as well. Really getting a lot of great information across different focus groups in our initiative. So this is more rather as compared to a focus group, this board is really to get to know the people and their experiences and how we can really understand how the system impacts people in the real day-to-day lives that they're living. Because I think that's where we learned the most about how the master plan for aging can be impactful.
Yeah, thank you. They're the best benchmark and feedback loop that we have. So thank you for that, Sarah.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or comments from council members? Well, thank you for that update, Sarah. And with that, I'd like to invite my fellow co-chairs, Achilles and Vivian, for our transition to the 2025 subcommittee reflections.
Hi, thank you, Bertha. This is Achilles Cerrone. I'm the chair of the Adult Abuse Response Subcommittee. And I want to repeat, if you can switch to the next slide, please. Our subcommittee has been looking at the reporting pathways. I want to reflect a little bit on what Director DeMorris at the beginning mentioned when there are people who are suffering from a limitation such as Alzheimer's and they're exploited. And there are numerous instances that many of you probably have seen or heard about where an older adult, an adult with a disability, is either unable to protect themselves, care for themselves, or they're victims of abuse. And depending on where you live in California, the mandatory reporting laws, but also where to report, a loved one or someone who might be concerned. It could be quite confusing. So what this committee has been focusing on is on what are the barriers to effective reporting of suspected abuse so that there is a timely review of a concern and a timely response. And not only the response, but also the collaboration of the other agencies, multiple agencies that according to our California Elder Abuse and Dependent Adult Civil Protection Act is supposed to respond. If you can switch to the next slide. I'm going to show you a little bit of what the work group or committee has been working on, and maybe it'll be easier to appreciate how complex our system is and some of the gaps we've been trying to identify and how we want to propose how to streamline the system so that reporting parties, whether they're mandated reporters or loved ones, can report and expect a timely response and intervention. Currently, as you can appreciate on this slide, you have three basic agencies that receive and respond to these reports: local law enforcement from the criminal point of the response, and then you have the advocate agencies such as APS and the long-term care ombudsman. And it is not only these agencies that receive and respond initially to these reports, but also who they have to cross-report to. So not only do you have mandated reporters who have to report to either local law enforcement and the ombudsman and APS, depending on setting, living independently or in a long-term care facility, but mandated reporters are also expected to report to licensing agencies. For instance, recently we just heard today about the California Department of Public Health and their licensing and certification division. They do respond to reports about licensing in long-term care facilities that are like skilled nursing, like they explain, or behaviors from certified nurse assistants. But there are other departments that also respond, such as the California Department of the Department of Consumer Affairs Licensing Division about other professions that are involved, such as nurses, licensed vocational nurses, and other individuals who might be the subject of the concern, but other licensing departments who respond to community care licensing facilities, for instance, or other assisted living facilities. So it is quite complex. So what our work group is trying to do is trying to lay out the entire structure and in a flowchart manner so that we can identify how we could propose to make this reporting and response system better and who is supposed to be at the table to collaborate. I'll pass it on to you, Vivian.
Thanks, Achilles. Next slide. So as Achilles said, this work is really about creating a clear visual process for reporting and referrals and coordination among the different types of groups, agencies, and community partners who are involved in the adult abuse and exploitation response. We have also been reviewing some ways that we can also strengthen MDTs and ensuring that they have the tools and authority to collaborate across different sectors. Um, the group has also identified some other next steps around training and data sharing and process consistency across counties to close response gaps and reduce duplication of work. So we have joined all three of our subcommittees, the Adult Abuse Response Committee, the Conservatorship Committee, and the Legal Services Subcommittees to work together on this flow chart that Achilles presented on the previous slide, and this greater work of the simplification and understanding the reporting systems. And we will continue to work together with all of the subcommittees together on several meetings. So we have our next combined subcommittee meeting October 27th from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. And we invite members to join. You don't need to be a member of the EDJCC to join a subcommittee. So if you'd like information, you can email the Engage email. And as we continue that work, we have a few things going on. So one, we have had some great input from Faye, who is the new long-term care ombudsman, and she's going to be working with some other advocates to kind of parse through a specific flow chart that's related to ombudsman. We're going to take that work and integrate it into this flow chart that Achilles has already started on. We've already received some input, and then we're building that out to also hopefully include other actors who aren't necessarily required to report or like a reporting agency, but are also involved in the adult abuse response, so that we have a better viewpoint of everyone who's involved in these responses and how they contribute to ensuring the safety and health of older adults and people living with disabilities who are experiencing abuse and exploitation. So I think right now we're gonna move into some just open discussion. Oh, is there one more slide? Let's see. Next slide. I think we just, okay, I covered the previous one. Yes, so this is just kind of what I just went over, our long-term goals, reviewing our systems, other state systems, and really providing a way to have some impactful structural reforms of our reporting and investigation pathways, just to make them more clear. So we will transfer to gallery mode so that we can have a question and answer session with the greater group of council members. And okay. And then I'm going to pass to, is Berta, are you facilitating this? Thanks.
Sure. Yes, I just also want to note, we really, at the last group subcommittee meeting where both legal services, conservatorship came together with adult response, it was such a robust group of individuals from across the state. And we really also want to thank our state agency partners who were there and made meeting also support the brainstorming that's being done in these collaborative meetings. And as Scott, like to your point at the beginning, that so much of our work is intersected, but sometimes some of us don't know what goes from, we come in at a certain part and we don't necessarily know what our community partner might be dealing with, or the handoff at another part. And, really what the work of the flow chart is trying to do is to really, for us as professionals, use our expertise to really flesh out what is the exact reporting structure that we have, so that we can then better communicate that out to other professionals, or at a lower level, make it useful for individuals. I know that as part of this work, I sometimes will contact It's been great to have the collaborative nature of the subcommittee members. I know I've contacted Vivian and Achilles and say, I've never heard of somebody that I have that's a regional center client, but they're living at this type of group home that's not licensed and they're having this issue. Where should I start in the reporting process? And as our aging population and our population with disabilities gets more and more diverse and there's different programs, it's great to really ensure that we're routing them to the most efficient place and the best place that can support and immediately respond. So, Scott, I'd like to bring it back to your comments. I know that do you want to speak a little bit more about some of the gaps that you've seen perhaps from reporting, like from when it gets to your end and you're going back and getting that information to like work up on a case?
Yeah, so I thank you. I had the experience years ago. I had one of the unfortunate cases. I've also seen how the system does work. I get lots of cases that get reported and comes through all the appropriate channels, and we have a success. I happen to have just one of the cases years ago that did slip through the cracks where we had a CNA that there were 7 or 8 victims that we wound up charging, and he's currently serving a life sentence. But there was a lot of confusion in the process of seeing how he was able to continue working in this field despite all these numerous complaints that didn't wind up in the right place. And there were mistakes made by law enforcement. There were reporting issues. There were issues with some of the administrators in some of the facilities. And there were victims who felt that they had reported it, but they didn't. In hindsight, when we interviewed them, they assumed that the police were told about something. They didn't realize that it was reported internally and then reported to a state agency. But there were questions about, I guess at the time, the credibility of the report or whatever it was. This person was able to continue to work in this industry for years and years, and was kind of just slipped through the cracks. So that was the lens in which myself and my district attorney investigator at the time had the knowledge base, because he was the former sex crimes sergeant with an agency in Orange County before joining the DA's office. So he had a decade of experience investigating sex crimes specifically. So between the two of us, we just kind of learned all this stuff, and it was a shock to us because we were like, wow, how would we ever know this? And it's a challenge. It's a challenge to figure out that flow chart in real time when you're trying to investigate something. It's a challenge for victims to understand. So it's a huge issue, and I think again, I'm happy to maybe. Obviously, we can't solve all the problems here, but I'm happy to use. I did myself and that sergeant. We did do a presentation to the CDAA, which is kind of my group of prosecutors and investigators, the California District Attorneys Association. We have a training every year, and we did do a presentation on that. And so maybe there's a group that we can take that presentation and talk through things and look at each scenario where things fell through the cracks and discuss what potential fixes there could be, because there are a lot of practical things that from a law enforcement perspective we could envision doing better on.
Noted. Thank you, Scott. I hope Allison and Nathaniel, if you're still on, going back to our morning presentation and the work that's being done to better connect and give visibility to how the reporting system works. Do you have any reflections on the flow chart in particular, or tying the work that you're doing in terms of some of the gaps that you've seen in the population that you feel is important, such as like Scott noted, to really help people understand the different levels of reporting that might be available, or the different resource resources that should come into play when something's reported?
And Nate, feel free to jump in. I think it would be great to actually review. I know that we reviewed it at the last monthly meeting, and it is something I wanted to circle back to. And I think it would be great if Nate could have some time to look at it as well. I think, as far as reporting goes, the regional center always, they're also mandated reporters, right? So they're going to report to the appropriate body depending on where the individual is living and the situation. And I would have to be looking at the flow chart. I'm trying to vision my brain just to see if it, adequately captures all of that. Is that what you're asking me, Bertha, or did I misinterpret?
Yeah. Just from your experience, what you might feel are some of the common misunderstandings about the reporting structure. Like, for example, do you find that from DDS, most people go directly to regional center when perhaps we want to encourage people to call law enforcement or adult protective first, or how has the partnership with adult protective services and regional center as both places where individuals will go to for crisis? Is there a growth opportunity there that you've seen as important in order to better prevent and intervene when there's dependent adult or elder abuse?
Yeah, that's a great question, Bertha. I would have to look back. I don't have data in front of me if there is a like a misstep on where folks are reporting to, or if there's a barrier to that. From my knowledge, but I'm happy to, look into that more and see if there, is a pattern there or anything that can be identified.
I know that in our subcommittee work, we'll be breaking out into smaller groups, or perhaps that's another place where we could collaborate on a smaller group form to come back to the greater flow chart that's been created. Thank you, Allison. And I'm sorry,
I think Nate might have been saying something, but
Oh, great.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of makes me think about just again the regulatory updates that will be effective in May of 2026, and the point of emphasis on making sure that there's communications. I think something that I can say out loud is just based on my own work experience, and I'm sure that all of us have experienced through the various facets of our system. Circling back is something that we sometimes see at great lengths, and sometimes we don't see simply because we're all working in different, and I don't like this word, but silos that are unintentionally created, right? So I think that cross communication is a point of emphasis. This does also make me think about access final rule requirements that kind of speak to the circling back of what has occurred and information sharing. But these are all elements that are in the works to be improved upon. So, not a specific answer to your question, Bertha. I mean, for the department, we work with 21 different regional centers. And so each regional center intended to really address the needs of their specific communities, and how all of these nuances transpire when it comes to communications, differ at that local level when you compare with regional centers. But when it comes to reporting to the department, these regulatory updates and changes, along with the guidance and all of the resources that we're looking to release, is really looking to really make strides in standardizing how this occurs. So yeah.
Thank you.
I'll hop in. I just, kind of a follow-up question for Allison and Nate, and even possibly Paul, if in the process of, doing these updates, if you came across any promising practices from other states. I know California is very unique because of our size and population, but I do think we can always learn from other people and what they've done. So I'm wondering if other states have other ways that they're dealing with the complexity of reporting systems, if they've been able to somehow simplify it, or maybe they just have a simpler system, and we should look at how they're doing that.
Yeah, I can speak briefly to it. We are working with folks to identify which states have good have systems where we can perhaps mirror or replicate, and how things are constructed. The one thing about California that's unique is we have a very, very large population, and how all of that information gets triaged through our systems is something that always stands out. But we are working with folks to circle stars some states that have some systems that are working, and then cross-reference with the things that that we want to be able to enhance or improve.
I would also at this point invite any council members who'd like to speak in generally from their direct experience with working with older adults, if the gaps that they see or the delays that they've seen areas of improvement with our reporting system. I know that we have diverse council members that serve individuals at different points. So I know this is some of the discussion that goes on at our adult response abuse combined meetings, but it would be nice to kind of take the opportunity now to further brainstorm of some of these issues.
I see Scott's hand is raised.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'm not proposing this because this would be monumental, right? But this is what most detectives think when they're investigating this. And I think just having this discussion, I could learn from it. How did the system develop with the Department of Public Health and Community Care Licensing operating separately? And what would it look like for those resources to be consolidated into one agency? And that's from a detective standpoint of just working the street, right? They're like, this doesn't make sense how a CNA could switch jobs from a nursing home to assisted living. Again, people outside of our industry don't know the difference. What's a assisted living? What's a nursing home? They don't understand what the distinction is. So I'm just curious. And that's kind of the question about what are other states doing? I wonder if that's common. That
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I had to find my mute button. Not necessarily in response to Scott's question, but just a question I had myself, which is, maybe it's a little bit in response to Scott, which is,
and stand up. I'd love to hear.
When DMFEA, Department of Justice Division of Medical Fraud and Elder Abuse, when we prosecute someone and we get a conviction, a guilty plea, whatever it is, we then report that prosecution and that conviction to both Medicare and Department of Healthcare Services so that that person is excluded from the Medicare and Medi-Cal systems, which means they cannot be paid by any Medicare or Medi-Cal provider. So if you have a CNA in a facility that gets prosecuted at the facility, they're excluded and can never work in another facility that's paid by Medicare or Medi-Cal. So I think that helps with some of that coverage. My concern is that DMFEA does that, but I don't know if other prosecutorial agencies are making those same exclusions and reporting those convictions so that the person is excluded. So the person can fly under the radar. And so when we're talking about gaps in referrals and gaps in prosecution and investigation, I think that is one. I think another one where things can be tightened up is, I've been at this now for 13 years saying DMFEA, BMFEA, all the things that we were and are now. But I still think that there are gaps in referrals that come to us and what our jurisdiction is and people who know that we exist and that what we can do in the area of elder abuse and elder neglect, dependent adult abuse and dependent adult neglect. And so one of the problems that we see is that referrals will come from an entity and they'll go to the locals, and sometimes locals have resources to work cases and sometimes they don't. And sometimes locals know what to do in cases and sometimes they don't. But they go to the locals or they go to DPH or they go to the ombudsman. And there's all these steps before we get a referral. And we have teams of experienced special agents, special investigators, and deputy attorney generals. And this is all they do. So we have the expertise in-house, but what happens is we don't get the referrals sometimes until 6 months, 8 months, a year down the line. So now we're looking at stale evidence, fading memories of witnesses. Not only that, but sometimes every single agency that's touched this referral has gone out and interviewed witnesses. So now we have 4 or 5 witness statements, which become a problem for us when we actually try to prosecute a case. So when we're talking about gaps in the process and referrals, I'm always here saying, send us referrals and send them to us often. Early and often is better, so that we can jump on board and maybe get ahead of some of these multiple witness statements before we start having victims unfortunately pass away, witnesses pass away, witnesses, leave facilities, leave the country, so on and so forth. So one of the gaps that I see, and it's maybe a little bit self-serving, is getting referrals to DMFEA sooner rather than later, in conjunction with that piece that I just talked about, which is making sure that convictions are being reported so that bad actors are being excluded from the system.
Thank you for that nuance, Jennifer. And important, with all the important points that you made, but especially the fact that it's not only the initial reporting and referral, but at the end, once there is a finding of abuse, how we protect that second level of reporting that also needs to go on and looking at that system. Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to mention that I'm a part of the subcommittee, and now we have a subcommittee of the subcommittee that Jason and I are working on, which we were assigned or volunteered or whatever that term is for the for the interface between volunteering and being volunteered, to look at other state laws. And we had a meeting yesterday to try to just figure out like how we approach that. And we don't want to just be, putting a net out there to find out how other states are doing it. We wanted this to be very focused on what we, areas that we want to be looking at. So this conversation has been really helpful already. But just, two of the things that have kind of come to the surface is that one of the kind of ideal systems out there that we want to look for is ease of use for reporters. What system is the easiest for anybody who sees elder abuse, regardless of where, knows where to go. So that would certainly be one. And the second would be, systems, states that have systems for doing really effective triaging of getting the cases from that initial report to whatever is the most appropriate agency, and that there's cross-reporting and all of that. And, then looking at kind of more specific issues of, what does that look like? Who does that triaging? How much does it cost? What kind of staffing? And I don't know if we're going to get to that. We also are in some, California is unique in a number of ways, not always good. We have our system where we have the mandated reporting, where we have the ombudsman as mandated reporters under our state laws is different from most states. And so, finding states that resemble ours, we're going to have some limitations in looking at, suggestions for how to make that work better. But we'll try. But I certainly would welcome anybody that has other things that they would like to look at in other states, to keep those coming. Jason and I, or the chairs of the committees, are really open to getting suggestions for what you'd like to explore in other states. I don't know if Jason, you want to add to that?
I think you did a great job of summarizing our starting point, and I just wanted to, add that I think we need to do a lot of work in terms of outlining the current process and the cross-reporting. I do think it's helpful to segment it out into like the mandated reporter's perspective and then the agencies that are responding. And looking forward to working with the Adult Abuse Subcommittee on this project over the coming months.
Thank you, Lisa and Jason, and thank you for accepting your voluntold position, Lisa, and undertaking that work. We really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for the robust conversation. And there's so many layers to this work. And as Jason said, work ahead. I know that the chairs and I, part of what we will like to do is we hope that everybody continues to join the subcommittee meeting, and then also just being able to put a timeline around our work, because there is so much, and just identifying as a subcommittee when we should plan on hitting different benchmarks. So we look forward to seeing you all at the October 27th meeting that was mentioned. I'd now like to welcome and I'm honored to introduce Carlos Olivas, Vice Chair of the Aging and Disability Resource Connection Advisory Committee and a family caregiver, to share his lived experience and perspective. Carlos, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good morning to the members of the EDJCC. Let's say that fast 5 times. And the participants. It's a privilege to be here. Like it was said, my name is Carlos Olivas. I am a caregiver for my dad, who is, in my opinion, flourishing in a creative capacity while navigating geriatric Alzheimer's disease. I want to start by recognizing the incredible role that caregivers play every single day. They're on the front lines of elder care, often quietly, often without recognition, but they are the backbone of support for older adults and people with disabilities across California. Caregivers see what works and what doesn't work in our systems of care far more clearly than any report, data set, or policy analyst could ever show. They live it every day. Our council has said from the beginning that if we want a truly responsive and effective elder care system, we need to elevate caregivers' voices. Their experiences are not just valuable, they're essential. Caregivers interact directly with so many parts of the system, from hospitals, adult protective services, home care agencies, legal aid, long-term care facilities, you name it. Because of that, they have a unique, big picture understanding of how all these systems work, or sometimes how they don't work. Their feedback helps us identify gaps, inefficiencies that we as agencies and professionals might overlook. When we take the time to listen to caregivers, we gain the kind of insight that shape smarter policies, improve communication, and ultimately provide better care and support for older adults and their families. Despite how essential their work is, caregivers often report feeling unsupported instead of receiving guidance or collaboration from the systems that should be helping them. They sometimes face criticism or blame. That kind of experience can be discouraging, and it makes an already challenging job even harder. There are also gaps in coordination between agencies that make it difficult for caregivers to navigate complex situations. When multiple agencies are involved, the lack of clear guidance can lead to confusion and frustration. The end result is that both caregiver and the person they care for suffer. Some of the hardest moments in caregiving come at transition points. For example, when a loved one receives a new diagnosis, or when an older adult moves from home care into assisted living or skilled nursing. These moments can be incredibly stressful and overwhelming. Caregivers need clear, practical guidance during these transitions. A little bit of support and education at these critical points can go a long way. It prevents crisis, reduce confusion, and lead to much better outcomes for both the caregiver and the person receiving care. We also need to acknowledge that every agency that touches the lives of older adults, whether it's in health, housing, legal, or social services, has a role to play. Too often, these agencies operate in silos. That leaves families to figure out on their own, and we know that navigating multiple systems can feel like a full-time job in itself. What we need is a system-wide coordination where agencies are communicating with each other and sharing information seamlessly. That's how we build a truly person-centered system that doesn't leave caregivers lost between departments. Another big challenge that often goes unspoken is the tension caregivers feel between supporting independence and ensuring safety. Many caregivers are doing the best to honor their loved one's autonomy, but at the same time, they feel being accused of neglect if something goes wrong. That's where clear policies and consistent guidelines are so important. Caregivers need the confidence to act appropriately without fear of judgment or legal repercussions when they're trying to do what's best for the person they care for. We also know that resources do exist, but they're often fragmented or poorly communicated. Families spend hours, sometimes days, trying to track down help, only to find that information was outdated or they're duplicating efforts. Improving communication and making information more accessible would make a huge difference. It would save caregivers time, reduce their stress, and ensure that resources are being used effectively. There are a few practical steps that we can take to address these challenges. First, we develop frequently asked questions or online guidance portals that focus on common elder scenarios, something that gives caregivers a clear and trusted starting point when they need help. Second, look at ways to enhance cross-agency communication, especially during transitions like hospital discharges or moves into assisted living. These are the moments when things tend to fall through the cracks. We can't fix that. We can fix that through better coordination. Finally, we should continue to involve caregivers in every part of the conversation because they're not just participants in the system, they are experts in it. So in closing, the perspectives of caregivers are not just helpful, they're essential. By addressing structural gaps, improving collaborations between agencies, and strengthening navigation support, we can create a system that is more responsive, compassionate, and effective for everyone involved. Our clear goal to empower caregivers, protect older adults, and make California a national model for elder justice and support.
Thank you so much, Carlos. We really appreciate your words, and I'm kind of speechless because it's like so impactful to have someone with lived experience come and talk to us. A lot of times we kind of exist at this like high policy level, and we don't always have the opportunity to hear from people who are interacting with these agencies, on a personal level and really on the ground dealing with how do I interact with these agencies? How do I get resources for my loved ones? So your words are so valuable to us. And I'm hoping that everyone feels the same way, that it really helps center the work that we're doing. And everything you mentioned really ties into everything we've been talking about, like simplifying processes, reporting processes, getting those resources directly to people so that you can actually understand what's available, what you're paying for with your tax dollars. Like, how are we making sure that every older Californian has access to the resources that they need? So we really appreciate your words, and hopefully we can have you come back again and talk to us about your lived experience as a caregiver. And we really appreciate all the work that you do to take care of your family members. Um,
Thank
so
you.
as we transition, we're going to transition into our council discussion and pressing issues. I'm not sure if there's a slide for that or if we're just staying in gallery mode. But so this portion of our agenda really provides space and an open discussion of our current priorities, system challenges, and emerging opportunities that impact elder and disability justice. These will be gathered into a report that will be sent out into a letter, but I wanted to kind of start off. I know we have had some discussion earlier today that can kind of transfer into this section, but I wanted to highlight a few things, since this section is a great opportunity to talk about the work of council members and what we've been doing. So one, this flow chart and reporting and response systems, I just want to highlight and thank Achilles for all of his work on starting out this flow chart. Achilles, like we mentioned earlier, will be stepping down as the chair of the adult abuse response subcommittee, but we will be continuing his work and really appreciate all of the work that he's put into the flow chart and into that subcommittee. Also, C4A, which is the convention for the California AAAs, is coming up in November, and Berta and I, joined by Sarah Steenhausen, will be presenting, and we will be presenting on the EDJCC. So if anyone is coming to the C4A conference, we'd love to see you there and say hi. And we're just going to be talking about how EDJCC has been able to advance elder justice through the Master Plan on Aging. And we would love to see anybody who's going to be at the conference. It's in Orange County this year. I also wanted to give a little shout out and highlight our partners. So Justice in Aging partnered with the San Diego Prosecutor's Office, Scott, Elder Law and Justice, Jamie, if you're on, Bethzetic Legal Services, Berta, and all of your team. And we co-sponsored a bill this year, AB 561, to update the Elder Abuse Restraining Order statute to expand access to the procedural protections for older adults. So it made it possible. Oh, thanks, Ranjana, because she just put in a link to the bill. It made it possible for older adults to use alternative service to serve an alleged perpetrator, and increased access to virtual appearances for elder abuse restraining orders. That work on this bill that was just signed by the governor would not be possible without the connections that we made here on the council. So I just want to highlight that, the work of the council goes even beyond the council. The friendships and the partnerships that we make here make it easier to have a legislative impact and have other impacts on older adults outside of our council work. And finally, I also wanted to highlight Scott's testimony. He had some recent testimony before the Little Hoover Commission on elder justice issues, and his remarks helped highlight the systemic challenges we're addressing here at EDJCC and reinforce the need for continued statewide coordination. So just thanking all of our EDJCC members for your leadership time and thoughtful participation throughout today's meeting. But I wanted to open up the floor for any other things that EDJCC members wanted to highlight.
Alicia has her hand up.
Hi, thank you. This has been great. All the presentations have been wonderful. And I agree with you, Vivian. What Carlos had to say was, or actually, I think that was Bertha that said that, but incredibly impactful, his comments. And as a person who has worked in the elder justice system in 3 different counties over the last 3 decades, I agree with Carlos. And also, as a person who has been a caregiver to my mother for the last 15 years, total care, even though I have worked in these systems, it was an incredible challenge to try to navigate them to get the care that she needed and the resources that she needed. And so I just really, really appreciate this opportunity. Agree with Scott that this is an unprecedented opportunity to make bold changes to the elder justice system. And I think that it's when we're talking about equity, we need to look and realize the fact that it really depends on where you live because so many different jurisdictions have different resources and different policies and different ways to do things. And when we looked at that flow chart that Achilles gave, it just blows my mind. Again, how does just the common person navigate these systems? So I really appreciate this opportunity to come together, and I hope that we are brave enough to make really, really bold changes to our systems and really be a model for the state of California. So thank you, Carlos, and thank you everybody else for your comments.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Yeah, tying and thank you, Carlos, for your testimony. It really it really packed a wallop. I just wanted to say one thing that one of the things that you brought up is something that really troubles me, and that is the idea that caregivers fear reporting because they're afraid of being, unjustly accused of neglect when what they're dealing with is really, something that in some cases is something that none of us would really handle well. And so I think that just kind of goes back to our work on the, looking at the reporting system of how we present to the public, and assure the public that if they reach out for help, it's going to be the kind of help that they need and to get that resources. And so I think that speaks to the need for us to kind of look beyond what we consider the elder justice network to be working more closely with the caregiving network and and the long-term care network generally, and not always rush to law enforcement. I mean, that's one of the issues in our reporting laws, that the cross reporting, which I worry scares people from making reports. So I think we really do need to, and Alicia made the comment too about how ridiculously complicated our reporting and cross-reporting system is. We're affecting people's lives, and this stuff is really important.
Thanks, Lisa. I wanted to make sure everyone knew that, anything you mentioned now will be in a letter to the Cal HHS secretary. I also wanted to add, I know there are proposed changes to the structures of MPA stakeholder subcommittees, and we have 3 subcommittees on EDJCC. And I wanted to highlight that we really appreciate the administrative support that Ranjana Maharaj provides for our subcommittees and would hope that that could continue. All of the advocates here on the EDJCC, work voluntarily to advance this project and really put in a lot of time and effort. And we really appreciate the support, the administrative support that Ranjana provides, because it makes it so that we are able to kind of jump in, get into the meat of the issue, and not be bogged down by Outlook invites and Zoom invites and all of the other little things that really are quite overwhelming and can kind of take over the time, all the scheduling, et cetera. So we really appreciate that, and we hope that that can continue, because we think that that kind of administrative support from CDA really makes our council able to be so productive and so impactful in the elder justice space. Is there anything else anyone would like to contribute that would go into a letter to the secretary?
I'll take an opportunity, absolutely, to voice my support. And first want to acknowledge Vivian and your incredible leadership. I'm glad to hear that you'll still be part of the team, but understand the burden that all of the chairs took, and the time commitment. It's just been extraordinary, but I couldn't imagine us having the momentum that we're having here in the organization without Ranjana, and to even picture us going forward without that type of administrative support, I feel like would be deflating to all the steps we've taken. So I couldn't express more strongly, I think on behalf of our subcommittee, the request to reconsider any decision to take that administrative support away from what we've accomplished. I think we've all made a commitment to be a part of this for another year, and we've got a lot of momentum. And that was based in part on our expectations of going into the next year with this team intact. So I would strongly suggest to anyone with that authority to continue on with the administrative support that we've enjoyed. Thank you.
If there's not anyone else who would like to hop in, I will transition over to Carol to give some information on public comment.
Thank you, Vivian. Let's go ahead and bring up the public comment slide. I'm going to spotlight myself. This is the public comment period for our public attendees. If you are attending by phone, you have the ability to hit *9, and that will indicate to us that you'd like to leave a comment. And those attending by the Zoom webinar function, you have a raised hand icon that you can click, and that will also indicate to us that you would like to leave a comment. We ask that the comment tours limit to 2 minutes, just so we have time for everyone, and we will have a timer. So we're going to go ahead and start. And we have Connie Arnold. Go ahead, Connie.
Thank you very much. Connie Arnold, disability rights advocate, 35 plus years. I'm now age 65, and I'm here listening to your discussion about abuse, and I want to talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that there are many of us, people with disabilities, that are reliant on non-relative care providers. While we may have a living person that is a relative that can assist us, we are often reliant on non-relative providers to provide care. The elephant in the room is the fact that the state of California has done nothing really to grow the workforce of non-relative care providers or the skills and integrity of those individuals to provide the work, including increasing the rate of pay and benefits in home and community-based services to have parity with that of institutional care settings. And that is a real big problem. When it comes to people with disabilities, many of us don't want to be involved at all in APS. And speaking of APS, APS and ADRC do not have a list of caregivers that can assist people that are calling in and need help finding caregivers. Everybody continues to fall back on get a list from the IHSS public authority. That is not effective or efficient, nor are many of those individuals interested in providing personal care to people with complex care needs. And also, those IHSS providers certainly are not going to turn themselves in for abuse at all. They may be told about it, but they're not there to turn themselves in for abuse. And speaking of that, I personally had to fire a caregiver on September 3rd and immediately got a reply email that said that she was going to get me in trouble and investigated by the state of California for defrauding the government for paying her wages under the IHSS advanced pay program on what I should be paying, which was the net amount, not the gross amount. And there was no publication by CDSS or presentations at mandatory IHSS orientations about people on IHSS advanced pay and how the check that you receive has already had deducted FICA, Medicare, and SDI, so you're required to pay the net amount. And so she was going on claiming that I was keeping the taxes, which I wasn't. And if it wasn't who I am, I might have been intimidated. It certainly added stress to my life, but I think you need to understand that when the system already considers people with disabilities as incompetent, people with disabilities want no part of the Adult Protective Services program, and they have nothing to offer people that need care and need care providers, which is really a problem. You're not advancing any issues for college students and helping people.
Connie, we need to wrap up.
I'm wrapping it up. So I want to say thank you, but beyond the abuse issue is the fact that you really need to look at the real elephant in the room, which is parity of wages and benefits and integrity of people and people's background and their actual training.
Thank you,
of
Connie.
non-relatives.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Carol. You are next. Let me unmute your line. Go ahead, Carol.
Thank you. I'm Carol Sewell from the California Elder Justice Coalition. I just wanted to thank you for calling out Scott Perillo's participation in the September Little Hoover Commission informational hearing on financial fraud and scams. There actually will be a second iteration of those hearings and those presentations on the 23rd, next Thursday, starting at 10 o'clock. The CEJC Executive Director, Donata Bohanek, will be talking about the work we've been doing around financial fraud and abuse. She actually is going to be on the first panel, so if anyone has the ability to listen in. I also wanted to note that at the first hearing, Jim Treggieri from APS at the Department of Social Service was also a presenter. And that hearing is available for you to watch as a recording on the Little Hoover Commission website, and that's lhc.ca.gov. This is the fastest growing crime. Everyone is impacted. Older adults are hurt most because their losses are greater. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. We appreciate the public comments. Do know that at any time you can send your a written comment to our Engage email box at engage, ENGAGE at aging.ca.gov. Let's give it a couple more moments, see if anyone else has a public comment. Lucy, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi, how's everyone? I wanted to know if anyone is familiar with a startup app for caregiving called Canary that I think that started last year, but then they put it on hold because they wanted to streamline it and better get like consumers' feedback on what caregivers are need and are lacking in the system. Does anyone heard about that at all?
Feel free to give us more information.
Well, I don't know. I would want like more information. I went to like the local library by my mom's house had a course there, and it was an introduction, but then I got an email saying that they decided to put their the system, their startup app for caregiving, on hold because they want to streamline it. They want to make it, it wasn't where they want it to be. And I just want to know if anyone heard about it. It starts with a K, Kinary. Or do you know of other apps that help caregivers with their clients to stay on track and to get the resources that they need?
And Lucy, this is Ranjana. We don't currently have that information, but if you can email it to our engage@aging.ca.gov mailbox, we can forward you the information if we have it.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. Again, anytime you can email our Engage email box at engage@aging.ca.gov. We have no new comments. Berta, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, if there's no new comments, then just logistical wise, I just want to make sure that we can just move to the final agenda item, which is closing comments.
Sure.
Jana? Okay. And if that's the case, then I will turn the floor over to Director DeMorris. Director DeMorris?
All right. Thank you. Thank you for another outstanding meeting. I wish we could bottle this wisdom and expertise and passion and advocacy and just pour it over the state of California. I want to acknowledge things move slowly, and I can appreciate being among leaders in this field, leaders in the nation, the frustration that comes with that when there are good ideas on the screen and on the table, and we're not able to move as quickly as all of us would like. I can assure you that these conversations reach many ears, and the memo to the secretary is just one of those methods. Certainly all of the state partners who are joining us today, who are listening in, state departments and constitutional officers who take this back. And I think, the example of the legislation is thank you for that example, because it translates into action, action that may not be directly, on the agenda here, but stems from the work of the coordinating council. So thank you. Thank you all for your contributions. Carlos, thank you very much. You are a beloved member of our Alzheimer's Advisory Committee, and thank you for giving even more of your time to be here with us today. It really struck me, and Alicia, thanks for sharing your experience. When we talk about, the intersection of this work, the local work, city, county, the regional work, the statewide work, the national work, so many of these programs, even among us who work in this area, it can be confusing to navigate, to hear you express that in your own experience as a caregiver to your mom. And that's been my experience trying to help a friend and not really knowing where to go. And she's been bounced around and had lots of interviews, all the things we heard today, being interviewed multiple times and having some resolution, but not being satisfied with the resolution as well. So when we talk about navigation, it's, definitely the consumer, the impacted person or individual. From Carlos's perspective, family members and caregivers, friends and supporters who need help with navigation, first responders and mandated reporters, and then people who work in the field and the network. And so this is a daunting task to ease. In our work, we see the accordion, where on one hand, we want things to be very specific, very tailored, and very targeted. And then we want things to be broad and general so that there's a wide entryway for people. And we see it. We're building a website, our first consumer-facing aging and disability website in the state of California. We'll be launching next year. And, being able to give people enough information to take them to the next place and not weighing it down with so much detail and so many specifics that they're overwhelmed and don't want to touch it. So the themes that you brought up today, you just reinforced and keep reinforcing over and over and over again what is needed to make the system better for everyone. And then last, I did just want to thank again, Berta, Vivian, Achilles. Thank you for your leadership. We are rotating leadership, and I'm just sorry to say goodbye to anyone rotating off of the coordinating council at the end of this year, but we're replenishing as well. So we'll be recruiting for new members to start in the new year. If you have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, recommendations, please send them our way. I'm so pleased with the representation we have today from many parts of our state, many areas of expertise. So please help us continue that momentum that Scott mentioned by recruiting people as strong as all of you. And then final thought, we have heard from you and appreciate it being expressed in this meeting about the value of administrative support. And thank you for your kind words about Ranjana, who's a star and has been so helpful to the work groups. No disputing that. We are assessing, this is one of 7 stakeholder advisory committees that the Department of Aging leads, and one of the only ones that has work groups. So as you can imagine, the tentacles that, for each 7 work groups is stakeholder advisory groups are a lot to manage. And then when there are additional work groups, and there's a lot of work in the elder justice and legal space for us to do in addition to our stakeholder groups. So I hear you. That would be our strong desire, to be able to offer the administrative support to this body and all the groups that we support. Absolutely. Unfortunately, resources are limited, so that's something we'll be assessing, but we really, really value your input, and we're honoring your request, so you'll hear more about that. Nothing that we can weigh in on today, but we're also looking at how we can be consistent among the various groups that we support and to be able to offer the same level of service to everyone. So it's been heard, it's taken back. We'll continue to assess This being the final meeting of the year, we'll come back to you in the new year with a good plan around supporting the work, continuing to support the work of the EDJCC, and to bring on new members to join all of you. And thank you, every one of you, whether you're ending your term or returning. Thank you all. Thank you all for your contributions, your commitment, and your participation in today's meeting. We will see you in the new year, and we'll hear from you before then.
Thank you, Director DeMorris. And thank you again also to the incredible team at CDA who throughout the year has supported our work at the EDJCC, and also I'll say this over and over, taken our big state and made it a really strong, connected aging network and disability network to advance the families that we serve. And we know with all the changes and emergencies that have happened over the last year, we know that has not been easy, and we thank you for that and that partnership. I also want to acknowledge a special acknowledgement to Vivian Mambaku and Achilles Saron for their leadership, partnership, and meaningful collaboration to the council and their respective subcommittees. I will continue to pepper their inboxes with questions as we all continue to do, whether outside the council, our work to advance and meet the needs of elder justice for older adults and adults with disabilities. I also just wanted to take a moment to reflect on the theme of today, which is really making sure that our systems, our investment in structures, all of our work that we do here through this council at the end of the day has an impact for the older adults when they access the system, or adults with disabilities, or as Carlos reminds us, of the caregivers that play such an important role. And I recall at one of our first EDJCC meetings, we had a public comment from an EMT, and that comment has come up so many times in our subcommittee work, and as we plan these agendas, has really told us, remind us of the importance of our work and the solutions that we need, the problems that we need to address and the solutions we need to advance. So I also want to thank individuals for their participation and providing public comment. If you're a council member, make sure to invite other individuals in your aging or disability network to these meetings. Our work and our efforts to come together today are for these statewide collaborations to ensure that our work is having an impact at a hyperlocal level, as we also look at system levels. And on a final note, I want to thank the EDJCC members and for lending their subject matter expertise throughout the year. There's been robust participation, significant engagement on our subcommittee as we looked at the work to undertake this year. And I want to thank you for being so incredibly strong, responsive, and as Alicia said too, that this is a key opportunity and opportunity to continue to advance bold missions. And I really appreciate the work of our vocal members that always push us to go beyond just the mere what's at the table, but really challenge us to look forward at strengthening solutions. So thank you all for your participation. And although this is the last council meeting of the year, I look forward to seeing you, many of you, in a couple of weeks at our subcommittee to continue the work of the reporting system that we are focusing on. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Carol.
Thank you all for attending. Stay in touch. Here you will see, and I removed the ASL. You will see how to stay in touch, mpa.aging.ca.gov, as well as our Engage email box, engage, E-N-G-A-G-E @aging.ca.gov, and of course our CDA website, aging.ca.gov, and various social media platforms that my children would be so amazed that we're hooked into. Again, thank you all for your time, and have a great rest of the week. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.